In this WrestleTalk news, a top AEW star requests his release, another big AEW name likely gone from the company, an update on Bryan Danielson returning from injury, the latest on Shane McMahon's WWE status, and more.
Support WrestleTalk!
One of the main arguments made by AEW fans in the utterly pointless AEW versus WWE debate is that AEW wrestlers are, in general, much happier than WWE stars, and that since AEW was created there have been very few stories of wrestler unrest in Tony Khan's company. However, the longer time goes on, the more stories are slowly starting to be reported. Over the past couple of weeks and months, a number of AEW names, including Alan Angels, Joey Janela, and Marco Stunt, have all been released from the company after their contracts expired. Now, a big name from the AEW-owned Ring of Honor has requested his release. According to the ever-reliable Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful Select, Jonathan Gresham, who was Ring of Honor champion until this weekend when he lost the belt to Claudio Castagnoli at Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor on Saturday, has requested his release. Rumors of issues between Gresham and AEW started before the match even took place, with Gresham making his entrance for the match without his usual mask and jacket. The rumor fire was further stoked when Gresham deleted his Twitter account immediately after losing to Castagnoli. According to Fightful Select, Gresham had in fact requested his release before Saturday's match, with one of the key reasons being an alleged lack of communication between management and Gresham. According to the report, Gresham also felt disrespected by the lack of time given to the championship match on Saturday's card. The report further states that when Gresham was finally able to have a meeting with Tony Khan to explain his frustration, the former ROH champion cussed out Khan, and those close to Gresham apparently said they believe he's done with wrestling for the foreseeable future after this month. Gresham had been ROH champion since December 2021 when he defeated Jay Lethal for the vacant title after Bandido was forced to relinquish the belt, having tested positive for COVID-19. And the bad news is far from over for AEW, as it's been reported even more names are unhappy with the lack of communication between management and the talent. Shortly after breaking the news of Jonathan Gresham requesting his release from AEW, Sean Ross Sapp tweeted to say it's far from the first time he's heard of AEW stars being frustrated with what they felt was poor communication from AEW higher-ups. According to Sean, names such as Brian Cage, Marco Stunt, and Joey Janela have all felt as though communication was lacking. He tweeted, "There seems to be a lot of lack of communication between talent relations and talent that we've heard from. We've heard stories from Gresham, Marco, Cage, Janela, and others not being able to get answers or responses. It really is a shame to see this, as I believe a lot of people, myself included, felt AEW was setting a much higher standard in terms of talent relations, and that in general its stars were happier. While this may be true in general, it's also clearly true that some things are starting to fall through the cracks. Cracks Tony Khan will surely want to fix before any serious problems start to occur. Damn, if only there was a recently unemployed, high-profile head of talent relations with a history of being really nice when firing people was lying around." If Jonathan Gresham is granted his release, it appears he won't be the only high-profile star leaving the company this month. Tully Blanchard has been a relatively regular sight on AEW TV since he debuted for the company as the manager of Shawn Spears back in 2019. But if reports are to be believed, he won't be a sight at all in the very near future. Fightful Select once again has the scoop, as its reporting talent have told them that Blanchard is effectively gone from the company, and his lack of appearance at Death Before Dishonor was seemingly due to him instead attending a prison ministry group. During Saturday's ROH Death Before Dishonor, it was revealed that the returning Prince Nana had purchased Tully Blanchard Enterprises and was renamed the Embassy. The Embassy was Prince Nana's original group in 2004. The current Embassy includes Gates of Agony, which is Toa Leona and Kaun, Brian Cage, and most recently, the seemingly soon-to-depart Jonathan Gresham. It has not been reported why Blanchard has either decided to leave or whether it was in fact AEW that decided not to extend his deal, but it seems we won't be seeing him in our screens for the foreseeable future. Brian Cage, who as previously mentioned was part of the original Tully Blanchard Enterprises and has never been one to hide his opinions on his position in AEW, has tweeted a photo of himself wearing a Tully Blanchard Enterprises t-shirt with the caption, "Ugh, well, here today, gone tomorrow." For many, Cage is one of the most underutilized wrestlers in all of AEW or Ring of Honor, but according to an interview from Tony Khan from early this year, there is no ill will towards him, and in fact Tony is a big fan of his. Speaking to the media after the ROH Supercard of Honor show early this year, Tony said, "I really like Brian Cage. I've always really liked Brian Cage. It was funny because when I first started thinking this might be a possibility of purchasing ROH, I hadn't worked with Brian Cage into my plans yet. I couldn't tell Brian Cage about about ROH, especially when it's confidential. Based on where we were going with him, I thought Team Taz are in a really strong position right now with Swerve and Keith Lee coming in. It didn't make any sense having Bryan fighting with Ricky and Will. For Bryan, I didn't think it made sense for him to be around Taz and those guys anymore. I also thought him and Tully here could be a good situation, especially when FDR and Tully were done. It's funny because with the situation of confidentiality and stuff, I couldn't tell Bryan I wanted to buy ROH and debut you and repackage you here until about a month ago. In better news for AEW, however, it seems several injured stars are starting to make their way back to the ring. There had been a lot of concern that Bryan Danielson, who had been out for nearly 2 months with a concussion, may not be returning to action for some time. Given his history and the fact he was forced into an early retirement due to head injuries, there were certainly some people who were scared we may once again have seen the last of him in a wrestling capacity. Thankfully, it appears our fears were unfounded, as during an appearance at San Diego Comic-Con over the weekend, Danielson made the wonderful announcement that he has now been cleared to return, and not only that, but he'll be facing Daniel Garcia on this week's episode of AEW Dynamite, where he will be apparently kicking his head in, which seems like a nice way to celebrate your return. Danielson hasn't wrestled since the end of May 2022 when he took part in the Anarchy in the Arena match at AEW Double or Nothing. It isn't clear whether or not he sustained the concussion during the match, but the timing would appear to line up. Someone who is not returning, at least for the time being, is CM Punk, who was given yet further insight into the injury that's kept him out of the ring since the beginning of June. During an appearance at San Diego Comic-Con, Punk explained to fans that he had not only broken his foot, but he actually shattered it. And I'm not a doctor, and maybe there's no difference between breaking and shattering a bone, but shattering always seems to seem more painful and probably more serious. According to Mike Rowe, who was at the event, Punk told fans there is currently no timeline for his return and that he's actually been relearning to walk, so serious was the foot injury he sustained. Tony Khan also spoke in San Diego about Punk's injury, and he claimed Punk is doing well and his recovery is going to plan. He said, so he's doing well, he's not behind in his recovery, he's going to the San Diego Comic-Con panel, he's doing well and on track, and we look forward to a great unification match when he's back, whoever the interim champion is. I can't rule Labor Day out, but I also can't promise because I don't want to say anything when it comes to somebody's recovery from a real serious injury. During a recent Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said he believed Punk would likely be back at either All Out or Full Gear, so realistically we shouldn't expect to see him until September at the earliest. And it's good news for a former manager of Punk who may now be in line for a big promotion. I don't know if you saw the very small story on Friday evening last week, you know, the one about the guy, Vince I think his name was, and something about him leaving his job. I'm sorry, my memory's terrible for these little stories. Anyway, in the aftermath of Vince McMahon retiring from WWE, there are going to be quite a few more jobs that need doing around WWE, and while it appears most of them have gone to either Stephanie McMahon or Bruce Pritchard, they cannot unfortunately do all of them. While it's been reported Pritchard was in charge of creative at last week's episode of SmackDown, Paul Heyman has reportedly emerged as a candidate to take over the role on a permanent basis. According to Wade Keller of PW Torch, Heyman and CEO Stephanie McMahon have a very positive relationship these days. He said, as I've talked about in recent months, it seems like to people that have seen them that Heyman and Stephanie get along. You know, like genuinely there's a chemistry and a dynamic between them that's very positive. And that's very different than, you know, 15 to 20 years ago. So Heyman is someone to watch. He's really, really smart and he is a wrestling guy. Keller believes that Heyman's close relationship with the likes of Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey is another reason WWE may decide to give him such a high-profile job. Keller added, Paul is someone to watch. He's so smart and he's so connected to big names such as Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey and Roman Reigns. So depending on how things shake out, Triple H and Stephanie may be leaning on Paul and he could be in their inner circle. And that would be quite a powerful trio of people who could take WWE into the next era on the wrestling side. Nick Khan on the business side and then Stephanie, Paul and Paul, so that's something to watch. However, it seems there won't be room for everyone, and anyone hoping to see the return of a certain sweaty son may have to wait for some time. In addition to his report on Paul Heyman, Wade Keller also has noted Shane McMahon is unlikely to re-enter the WWE picture. He noted Stephanie and Shane are not on good terms at the moment, and therefore a big family reunion is currently not on the cards.
In this WrestleTalk news, more details on Vince McMahon's retirement, how Brock Lesnar appeared on SmackDown after walking out, my review of SmackDown, Tempest review of Rampage, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.